Alright, just wanted to share with you an upgrade I did to my Champion 3100 generator. As you can see from the picture here, it's got a fairly small wheel on the back of it, so if you're trying to move this thing around in sand or dirt or any sort of rough terrain like I do frequently, it doesn't roll so well. You're kind of more or less dragging it around. It works good on hard pack or pavement, concrete, but not so well on in anything that's loose or uneven. So did some research and tracked down some parts to make this, to convert it to a big wheel or sand wheel, which makes it a lot easier to move it around. So just wanted to show you how I did this. Going to do this a little bit backwards here. I basically have the one side of this pretty much completed, so you can get an idea there of the difference in the size of wheel on the left versus the stock one on the right. So what I did was measured took off the axle first, and it's just secured on with four 10mm bolts into these flanges here, so the whole assembly comes off pretty easily. And then I took off the stock wheels here, so they just are held on with a snap ring into a groove on the axle with a washer behind it, and then a plastic cap, which you can see here has a groove or a notch to where you can get a screwdriver up underneath it to pry it off. So really easy to take off the wheel too, the factory wheel, as long as you have a pair of snap ring pliers. So show you what it looked like here, kinda. Take the wheel off there. So basically just a welded on washer to the end there to act as a stop. I have already actually cut off a 1/2 inch from the end here. Basically I wanted to get my new big wheel as close, tucked in, as close to the generator as I could before it would rub, but I also didn't want to mess with moving this washer, breaking the welds off there and cleaning it up, as we got to put a coupler over the end of that axle. So it tucks up pretty close. I probably could have got it another 1/2 inch shorter or so, but I figured this was going to be good enough for my needs. So I ended up just cutting that off with a hacksaw, and it actually sawzall, but it went right through it. So pretty easy to do that also. But if you don't want to do that, the extra 1/2 inch didn't look that bad either. It's still fairly close to the plastics on the generator, so completely optional. So what I did first was actually measured this axle here and found that it was a 7/16 axle, and the axle that the wheel uses is a 3/8. So two different size axles that I was basically trying to figure out a way to tie them together. So ended up stumbling on these pretty nice couplers made by Climax. So it's a one-piece coupler, but it is kind of notched into two. Take this off here. It is notched into two separate regions. So one is for one size and the other is for a different size. So the closest I could find was actually a 3/8 by 3/8, and then I just took a 7/16 drill to the one side here where I needed it bigger, and drilled out the bore just the length of this side for that 7/16. So it's pretty easy to do that because it's not much larger than the 3/8. So as long as you got a 7/16 drill bit, it went through it pretty easy. So once that was done, all you got to do is connect the axles together. And I already had put the one side in, so when it's all said and done, you end up getting this here. So there's four Allen head screws there that you'll tighten down. You do need to tighten each of them multiple times, as when you tighten one, it loosens up the others. And kind of the trick here, or a tip here, is definitely go ahead and insert both sides, into that coupler first before you tighten everything down. I found that even though it's separated here, it's still a one-piece assembly. So if you tighten one of the diameters down, it actually does start to snug up a little bit the other one, and there's not a whole lot of clearance in the machining here. So you don't want to get it tightened to the point you can't get your other axle in. And I guess similar, once you do this, once you tighten all of these down, it doesn't really expand back out if you loosen up these Allen heads. So it's kind of a one-shot deal. I actually did have to take it apart and do it again, but you gotta pry on it a little bit, and it wasn't too much fun. So try to get this right the first time will make your life easier. As far as torquing those four down, you want to put a pretty good amount of torque on them, but definitely don't go crazy with it. I did end up breaking one of the Allens here, and I was, that's because I was using a crescent wrench on the end. So just use your hands, but you will have to go back and forth between these four several times to get them torqued down. So on the other side of the wheel here, you'll see the axle coming out. I already cut this piece to be the proper length here. So basically put your coupler on, put your wheel on, and hold it up against the generator, and mark where you want to cut it, and also include the width of what we're going to use to hold onto the end here. So that piece is actually from the same company, Climax, but I went with a two-piece collar here. So this just slips over, and again you tighten down the two Allen screws there. So that will go on the end of the axle here. So I can get it on real quick. And I've got it quite pushed all the way on there, but you get the point here. Push it all the way through, and then tighten those down. You want to leave just a little bit of gap between the the back side here and the front side, so that the wheel can spin freely. But it's really not that big of a deal. Just mentioning, if you can get just a very, very small gap, that will help the wheels turn easy. But it actually turns really easy to begin with, and no lubrication or anything needed, so pretty nice. So here's kind of the completed side now. The wheel here is all rubber, so it's fairly soft. It's not too soft though. It's fairly close to the rubber that comes on the stock wheel, so it's not going to compress down too much, but it will move a little bit under load and not mark up surfaces. And it is a solid rubber, so you don't have to air it up or worry about it going flat. So let me show you the actual parts I used here. So first, again, I did a really deep amount of research to try to find what I thought was the best wheel for this. There's not a whole lot of them out there, but definitely some cheaper options. But in the end, I pretty much decided that this one was. It's from Mighty Max Cart, and if you go to their website, they have a separate parts section where you can buy the individual pieces from the carts that they make. So this is a new wheel that they're offering, and it's $22, so not too bad. I really only found one other wheel that was of much interest to me, and it was about 3 times the price of this for a single wheel. So I think this is a pretty good deal, and so you'll want to order 2 of those. And then I also decided to go ahead and order the axle that we cut up to use for that wheel, just to make sure I got the right diameter and everything. Plus the $9 there is probably cheaper than what you could buy it locally, and they were doing free shipping. I think they always do free shipping, so seems like a pretty fair deal. So I went ahead and ordered that axle there also. So the other parts I got off of Amazon, and that's the couplers and the collars. So you're gonna want 2 couplers, which these are the ones I ended up purchasing. Like I said, I went with 3/8 by 3/8 and then drilled out the one side to make it a 7/16. So you might want to check you got a 7/16 drill bit. Also, if you look real closely here, you will see the 2 that I ordered were different part numbers. They're basically the same thing, it's just one's got an extra keyed slot in it, which I don't really know what it's for, but both of these should work. But want to do your research here. As you can see, even between these 2, pretty big price difference, and some vendors were even selling these for $100, $150 a piece. So the pricing on these is kind of interesting. On Amazon, at least when I purchased it, didn't have much stock, so I kind of had to buy one at a time, or one of different part numbers, so that they would ship fairly quickly. So anyways, those are the ones I went with. And also the collar here is this guy here. So got the part number there, pretty cheap. You'll need 2 of those also. So in the end, I think I came out pretty close to, like, if I remember right, I think about $90 for everything. So not the cheapest upgrade in the world, and I'm sure you could go cheaper, but with how easy, and this being all pretty much bolt on, besides making a couple cuts on the various axles, I think it's a good upgrade. I guess the other thing I should mention, perhaps this is optional, so I was kind of forgetting about it, but since you've raised up the back portion, let me give you a little better idea of the difference between the wheel sizes here. Stack them on top of each other. So it's pretty good size difference here, especially on the width. So I took some measurements and basically found it's going to lift up the generator from the ground about another inch and a quarter. So I went to Lowe's and picked up some of the notched or holed square steel bar and cut it to match the feet that were on there. So 1.25 inch spacer is about perfect, and Lowe's did have that square steel bar in 1.25 inch, so it all worked out good. This is the foot that came off the generator with the screw that went in there. So all I did was, again, got the square bar and then got a screw that's longer. So the new screw that I got is it's an M6 by 1.0, and the new one is a 60 millimeter length. If you could find a 55 millimeter, that would work. The 50 seemed to be too short when I was playing around with it. So those are your 2 best bets. Again, M6 by 1.0 in the 60 millimeter length, and then I used a washer here also. But I think that is it. Hopefully this helps if you have one of these generators to do this upgrade. Thanks.